No one was looking for a monster. They were looking for a missing girl. Then another. Then another. At first, the disappearances felt unrelated. Different places, different days, different lives. But they all shared one thing. Someone trusted the wrong person. He didn't force his way in. He didn't chase. He didn't threaten. He asked. He asked for help loading books. He asked for directions. He asked with a smile that made people feel safe. Witnesses remembered the same detail again and again. A man named Ted. He blended into crowds, college campuses, parks, brightly lit beaches. And while families waited for phone calls that never came, while police struggled to connect dots that hadn't formed yet, he kept moving, state to state, city to city, leaving behind questions and silence. This case didn't fail because there were no clues. It failed because the clues didn't look dangerous. A clean-cut law student, a political volunteer, a man who knew how to sound trustworthy. By the time the pattern became clear, dozens of lives had already been taken. Tonight's episode is not about the legend that followed. It's about the early moments, when warning signs were missed and normal was mistaken for safe. Because the most terrifying cases don't begin with violence. They begin with someone who seemed like they could never do harm. This is Unsaid Case Files. Ted Bundy was born Theodore Robert Cowell in 1946. From the beginning, his life was built on a lie. He was raised believing his grandparents were his parents, and that his mother was his sister. When he eventually learned the truth, resentment followed. Toward the people who kept the secret, toward himself. As a child, he was described as quiet and distant, not shy, just detached. There were early warning signs, stories of cruelty, behavior that unsettled people. But nothing was reported. Nothing was treated as serious. As he grew older, Bundy learned something important. If you look normal, people stop asking questions. And that image would become his most effective weapon. By the early 1970s, Ted Bundy had learned how to disappear in plain sight. He studied psychology, worked on political campaigns, volunteered at a suicide hotline. People described him as intelligent, empathetic, trustworthy. Even people trained to recognize crisis didn't see him as dangerous. Bundy studied how trust worked, how people responded to confidence, how easily hesitation could be exploited. He dated seriously, played the role of stability. But behind that image, something was shifting. Control replaced empathy. Fantasy replaced restraint. And in early 1974, women started disappearing. In early 1974, the disappearances began quietly. No signs of struggle, no witnesses, just empty rooms. Linda Ann Healy vanished from her basement apartment near the University of Washington. She was a student, a radio weather reporter, someone with plans. Soon, more women disappeared across Washington and Oregon. They shared similarities: age, appearance, routine. Witnesses described a man with an injured arm, cast, a sling. He asked for help. He introduced himself as Ted. Police struggled to connect the cases. Different jurisdictions. Little evidence. Some victims were labeled runaways. They weren't. This wasn't random. It was methodical. By the summer of 1974, witnesses began noticing details. The same name, the same demeanor, the same car. A light-colored Volkswagen Beetle. At Lake Sammamish State Park, multiple women were approached by Ted in broad daylight. 2 never returned. Police finally had something concrete, but disbelief slowed everything down. Because nothing about him looked threatening, and that hesitation gave him time. Bundy moved to Utah. This time he impersonated authority. At a mall in Murray, Utah, he approached Carol Durant, claiming to be a police officer. She trusted him until something felt wrong. When he tried to restrain her, she fought. Beaten and injured, she escaped. She survived, and her testimony changed everything. For the first time, there was a living witness. The mask had cracked. By 1975, Bundy's name surfaced repeatedly. People close to him were suspicious. Police searched his car, found disturbing items, but nothing definitive. He was released. Investigators across states began realizing they were chasing one man. But Bundy moved again, and time was running out. Bundy was arrested in Utah in 1975, charged with kidnapping and assault. Carol Durant identified him. He was convicted, but not charged with murder. While awaiting trial in Colorado, he escaped twice. Each escape fed his confidence, and each failure to stop him led to more violence. Bundy fled to Florida, used aliases, blended in, and within weeks the violence returned. Faster, more chaotic. Florida would become the site of his most brutal crimes. In January 1978, Bundy attacked the Chi Omega sorority house. 2 women were murdered. Others survived with permanent injuries. Days later, 12-year-old Kimberly Leach was abducted and killed. This time, there was no denying what he was. The country watched. Bundy was arrested in Florida in February 1978. Evidence mounted. He represented himself, turned the trial into theater. But the evidence held. He was convicted, sentenced to death 3 times. Bundy performed for cameras. The media amplified the myth. Victims faded into the background. But the verdicts stripped the performance away. What remained was a convicted killer. Bundy confessed to delayed death. Never remorseful. Only controlling information. On January 24th, 1989, he was executed. The damage remained. Families never received all answers. Survivors lived with lasting trauma. The case changed policing, profiling, and public trust. The legacy wasn't his name. It was the lesson. Bundy wasn't dangerous because he was unique. He was dangerous because he understood trust. This case reminds us that danger doesn't always look dangerous, and warning signs matter. Cases like this don't end with execution. They linger. At Unsaid Case Files, we tell these stories to remember victims, not glorify killers. If this episode mattered to you, follow the show, subscribe, and share. Because silence allows patterns to repeat. Thank you for listening. Thank you for remembering. I'm Johnny Black, and this has been Unsaid Case Files.